My name is Brian Kamenker. Pro-family groups across America and from Britain to Australia have asked me to share what same-sex marriage has done to Massachusetts, which was the first state in the U.S. to allow this travesty. I'm the president of the pro-family group MassResistance. For almost 20 years, we've been fighting for parental rights in the schools and pro-family values. Anyone who thinks that same-sex marriage is a benign eccentricity which won't affect the average person should consider what it has done to Massachusetts since 2004. It's been used as a hammer to force everyone to accept homosexuality. The slippery slope is real. New radical demands never cease. On November 18, 2003, the Massachusetts Supreme Judicial Court announced its Goodridge opinion, declaring that it was unconstitutional not to allow same-sex marriage. 6 months later, despite public outrage, homosexual weddings began to take place, and that was just the beginning. Almost immediately after the gay marriage ruling in Massachusetts, things started happening in high schools across the state. Starting in early December of 2003, there were school-wide assemblies to celebrate same-sex marriage. Kids were given literature from national homosexual groups, telling them how it was now to be considered a normal part of society. Children in schools were given this sheet on marriage myths by the homosexual group Gay and Lesbian Advocates and Defenders. One of their myths is that the purpose of marriage is procreation. Another myth is that children are better off when raised by a mother and a father. And lots of other things were handed out. Within months, it was brought into the middle schools. An exhibit called Love Makes a Family, meant to normalize the concept of homosexual marriage in kids' minds, was going through schools across the state. In September of 2004, an 8th grade teacher in Brookline, Massachusetts, told National Public Radio that the gay marriage ruling had opened up the door to teaching homosexuality in her class. She told NPR, "Give me a break, it's legal now." The following year, it was in elementary school curricula, with hostility toward parents who disagreed. Kindergarteners in Lexington, Massachusetts, were given copies of a picture book, Who's in a Family?, telling them that same-sex couples are just another kind of family, just like their own parents. The book made a point of showing two mothers and two fathers to the children. One Lexington parent, David Parker, demanded to be notified when this was happening and to be able to opt out his son in kindergarten. But rather than work with him, the arrogant school officials had him arrested and put him in jail overnight when he wouldn't cease his demand. The case outraged parents across the state, but the school officials refused to relent. The next year, second graders at the same school were read a book, King and King, about two men who fall in love and marry each other, ending with a picture of them kissing. When parents Rob and Robin Worthland complained, they were told that the school had no obligation to notify them or allow them to opt their child out. So the Parkers and the Worthlands filed a federal civil rights lawsuit against the town and the school system. Parents rallied to their side, but in 2007, a panel of federal judges ruled that because same-sex marriage is legal in Massachusetts, schools actually have a duty to normalize homosexual relationships to children, and schools have no obligation to notify parents or let them opt out their children, even in elementary school. In fact, according to the court's ruling, acceptance of homosexuality is now a matter of good citizenship. School libraries have also radically changed, from elementary school to high school, with books normalizing homosexual marriage. In particular, a large, slick hardcover book celebrating Massachusetts homosexual marriages began to appear in many school libraries across the state. Titled Courting Equality, it was supplied to schools by a major homosexual activist organization. It teaches that gay marriage was a great civil rights victory. Activist teachers began displaying photos of their same-sex spouses in their classrooms and bringing their same-sex spouses to school functions. And when an attempt at a constitutional amendment to stop same-sex marriage began gathering steam, there was a full-court press on students to actively support same-sex marriage. Kids in school were even persuaded to march in gay pride parades with pro-same-sex marriage banners. And there's more.
Businesses and corporations were affected in ways nobody anticipated.
All insurance in Massachusetts must now recognize same-sex married couples in their coverage. This includes auto insurance, health insurance, life insurance, and everything else. Businesses must recognize same-sex married couples in all their benefits and activities regarding both employees and customers. People can get fired from their jobs for expressing religious objections to same-sex marriage. In 2009, an employee of a Boston business was fired for mentioning his disagreement with same-sex marriage after another employee brought it up. It even made the local TV news. His letter of termination said that his comment was inappropriate because, quote, in Massachusetts, same-sex marriage is legal. And of course, the wedding industry is required to serve the homosexual community if requested. Wedding photographers, halls, caterers, etc. must accept same-sex marriage events or be held liable for discrimination. Businesses are often tested for tolerance by homosexual activists. The activists will go into restaurants or bars and publicly kiss and fondle each other to test whether the establishment demonstrates sufficient equality, and if not, the businesses can be fined and punished.
The legal profession and the judicial system have also been terribly affected.
The Massachusetts bar exam now tests lawyers on their knowledge of same-sex marriage law. In 2007, a Boston man failed the Massachusetts bar exam because he refused to answer a question about homosexual marriage. Increasingly, lawyers in Massachusetts firms practicing family law must now attend seminars on homosexual marriage. Specific issues regarding homosexual family law are now firmly entrenched in the Massachusetts legal system. In addition, there are now several homosexual judges overseeing the Massachusetts family courts.
Almost immediately after same-sex marriages came to Massachusetts, the changes started, beginning here at the State House and permeating throughout government.
One of the first shocking changes was to the marriage license itself. It doesn't say husband and wife anymore. It now says Party A and Party B. And the state's justices of the peace were ordered to perform same-sex marriages when requested, despite religious objections they may have. Some were forced to resign rather than comply. A climate of fear has kept politicians at all levels from disagreeing with or criticizing the homosexual movement since same-sex marriage came to Massachusetts. Public officials are afraid of being accused of wanting to, quote, take away rights. And this fear has expanded to suppress any meaningful debate on all homosexual-related issues. Additionally, it has brought a feeling of intimidation among pro-family people across the state. In recent years, the numbers of politicians and political candidates marching in the Gay Pride Parade is staggering. Every year in Boston, at the beginning of Gay Pride Week, members of the City Council gather in front of City Hall and pay their respects to the homosexual rainbow flag, which then flies over Boston City Hall for the entire week. Even the Republicans The so-called Conservative Party has caved in, and in April 2009, the chairman of the Massachusetts Republican Party interviewed with a homosexual newspaper and told them that the party would no longer oppose homosexual issues such as gay marriage. And now even some Republicans march in the gay pride parades. All of this has had a huge effect on state government. Within a year of the gay marriage ruling in Massachusetts, the state's adoption and foster care workers went through a massive indoctrination on, quote, LGBT youth awareness. These sessions were run by the radical National Gay and Lesbian Task Force. The emphasis was that those working with children must be trained that homosexuality and transgenderism are normal. In 2006, the Parents of the Year honored by the Massachusetts Department of Social Services were two men who were married to each other. The men had adopted a baby through the state, against the wishes of the baby's parents, by the way, according to news reports. And the day after that adoption was final, the state approached the men about adopting a second child. The state-funded Massachusetts Adoption Resource Exchange, whose logo includes two men with a child, has been pushing GLBT family formation and holds adoption parties where homosexual couples can come and see available children in person. Birth certificates in Massachusetts have been changed from mother and father to mother/first parent and father/second parent. Two men or two women can now be listed as the parents on birth certificates. Homosexuals who adopt can revise children's existing birth certificates. Adoption agencies have said that well over 40% of their adoptions are to homosexual couples. Anecdotal reports also indicate that many adoption agencies now favor homosexuals over normal couples, and it's getting even more radical. On May 15, 2013, a representative of the Massachusetts Department of Children and Families told a Boston Bar Association forum that they are weeding out adoptive and foster parents who are not willing to wholly accept and support GLBT self-identification by a child in their care.
Hospitals and public health have really changed and really been affected.
Public health has certainly changed. In 2007, the commissioner of the Massachusetts Department of Public Health, who is married to another man, told a crowd of middle school and high school kids at the state-sponsored Youth Pride event that, quote, it's wonderful being gay, and that he wants to make sure that there's enough HIV testing for all of them. However, the sexually transmitted diseases test required to obtain a marriage license was eliminated 5 months after same-sex marriages began in Massachusetts by a bill quietly signed by Governor Mitt Romney. This was despite an increase in syphilis cases and other STDs in homosexual men in Massachusetts at the time, according to the Mass Department of Public Health. Gay domestic violence has become so epidemic in Massachusetts that it now has its own budget item in the state budget, with a considerable amount of money, portions of millions of dollars going to it each year. It has gotten so bad that gay domestic partner violence literature, largely funded by the state, like this and this, is now distributed at many public homosexual events, including to children at youth pride events. But probably Exhibit A of how out of control a public health department can get is the Little Black Book, which was given out to teens at Brookline High School on April 30th, 2005. The Massachusetts Department of Public Health and the City of Boston Public Health Commission both had a part in making it, along with some private homosexual-related groups. Among other things, it gives tips to boys on how to perform sex acts on other males, and it even includes a directory of bars in Boston where young men can meet for anonymous sex. The book cites the right to marry as one of the, quote, important challenges in a place where it's a great time to be gay. Also in the book, the health department's messages to kids include, you have the right to enjoy sex, i.e. homosexual sex, without shame or stigma, and you have the right to safer sex materials that speak to your desires. It is so obscene and disgusting that when we exposed it to the media, the governor of the state at the time, Mitt Romney, tried to distance his administration from it. But spurred on by the legality of same-sex marriage, the radical path has continued. The official Massachusetts Department of Public Health policy now is that the unusual and often horrible diseases and issues surrounding homosexual behavior must not be considered a public health problem. The medical community should not stigmatize or discourage it, but instead should put more resources into gay health care. Astoundingly, hospitals have become radicalized in a big way. Because of the purported necessity to cater to so-called LGBT health issues, nearly every major Boston hospital has become an active supporter of the homosexual movement. This includes marching in the gay pride parades, holding homosexual events, and putting on numerous gay health-related seminars. This is one of the most disturbing things that's happened. How bad is it? In 2011, a prominent physician at Beth Israel Deaconess Medical Center in Boston, which is a large Harvard-affiliated hospital, objected to the hospital being involved with gay pride activities. He also pointed out the medical health risks of homosexuality. The hospital then threatened to fire him, telling him that same-sex marriage is legal and that his comments constituted, quote, harassment and discrimination.
Churches have also been affected, but in ways which most people haven't considered.
Any church or religious group that dares to deny the legitimacy of same-sex marriage, even inside its walls, can face a wave of terror and harassment. In 2005, the Tremont Temple Baptist Church in downtown Boston held a religious conference on issues surrounding homosexuality and gay marriage. Over 100 homosexual activists came to storm the church, using bullhorns and screaming obscene slogans. Boston riot police had to keep them from entering. They even dragged a coffin to the front door. In 2006, the same church held a televised pro-traditional marriage event inside. Homosexual activists carrying this banner and other signs taunted and screamed at people entering and leaving. That same year, a Catholic group held a pro-traditional marriage rally in downtown Worcester, Massachusetts. They had hardly begun the speeches when homosexual activists swarmed the area, yelling, "Bigots!" and screaming disgusting chants. When one of the rioters rushed the stage, an organizer tried to lead her away. The rioter sued him for assault. He went through a 4-day trial before being acquitted by a jury. The Park Street Church in Boston abuts the historic Granary Burial Ground, where Samuel Adams and other patriots are buried. In 2009, the church held an ex-gay religious training session inside. Homosexual activists paraded through the burial ground, gathered next to the church, and held an ear-piercing bullhorn to the church windows to disrupt and terrorize the people inside. In 2012, a Catholic church in Acushnet, Massachusetts, posted the words, "Two men are friends, not spouses," on its outdoor sign. Over the next day, the church received a flood of profane phone calls, including a threat to burn down the building. Then, at the Sunday Mass, homosexual activists gathered outside the church to harass and intimidate the parishioners. In 2013, homosexual activists targeted Pastor Scott Lively, who had preached against the homosexual movement in his sermons and writings. Pastor Lively had recently opened a religious mission and coffee house in inner-city Springfield, Massachusetts. A group of homosexual Occupy activists came and terrorized the people in the building. In all of these incidents, to our knowledge, the local police made no efforts to arrest the perpetrators or charge them with any crimes, though in the majority of the situations there were police officers at the scene or nearby. In fact, in our observations, the police were largely sympathetic to the homosexual activists. This is what you can expect with gay marriage becoming official policy.
And then there's the slippery slope, the other consequences from gay marriage, affecting not only children, but society in general.
The homosexual movement has had its plans in place for many years. Gay marriage was just a starting point. In 2003, before the gay marriage court decision in Massachusetts, the prominent Boston Gay and Lesbian Advocates and Defenders Legal Group passed this brochure out at a homosexual event, outlining their long-term action plans. At the top is marriage, and then their objectives include LGBT youth, Boy Scouts, transgender equality, law enforcement, immigration, and the military, among others. As we saw earlier, to them it all starts with same-sex marriage. In addition, they are continuing the aggressive push to normalize homosexuality in the schools, and it's having chilling results. A government survey of high school students across Massachusetts showed that the percentage identifying as gay and who had same-sex physical contact rose by about 50% between 2005 and 2009. What comes next? The major theme now in Massachusetts is transcending sexual boundaries, and it's going in all directions. Polygamy is no longer an exotic concept, but is being mainstreamed wherever possible. Recently, the governor of Hawaii even admitted that if gay marriage passes there, a polygamy lawsuit by the homosexual movement will probably be next. Sadomasochism is also being mainstreamed by the homosexual movement. Almost every gay pride parade now has a contingent promoting leather and consensual infliction of pain. Not too long ago, cross-dressing was a fringe behavior. Now, the transgender rights movement is celebrated at the highest levels of state government. Men not only dress as women, but get medical procedures to look like women and march in the streets for transgender rights. But as we see over and over, the movement's major focus is on children. Here is a man at a youth pride event in downtown Boston, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. A few years ago, Fox News interviewed us about a gruesome discovery at the world-renowned Children's Hospital in Boston. The two kids in this photo from the Boston Globe were identical twin boys. One of them decided to become a girl. The hospital has set up a gender change clinic for pre-adolescent children to be given hormones and drugs to delay puberty, including growth in height, in order to facilitate body-mutilating operations later on to supposedly change their sex. It's being celebrated in the media. And just this year, the State Department of Education issued a directive to schools across the state that boys who decide to dress as girls should be able to use girls' restrooms, play on girls' sports teams, and be addressed by a girl's name without the parents' knowledge or consent. And other students or staff who don't agree must be disciplined or given diversity training. That is the brave new world in Massachusetts since gay marriage began.
As we've shown you, the slippery slope is real. And moreover, All it takes is one state to enact it, and the activists waste no time beginning their work there and in neighboring regions that haven't yet been overcome. Once same-sex marriage gets a foothold, society becomes more oppressive, hammering citizens with the force of law. The judicial system becomes more radical and arrogant, and politicians become more cowardly. And once that concept is institutionalized, other boundaries on sexual behaviors quickly begin to fall. It's interesting that you hear a lot about civil rights and equality, but in fact, many true civil rights begin to disappear, and people holding traditional values become second-class citizens under the law. The push for gay marriage is really about putting the legal stamp of approval on homosexuality and forcing its acceptance on otherwise unwilling citizens and on our social, political, and commercial institutions. To those of you where this is being threatened, do not wait. It is absolutely necessary to call, write, and even visit your elected officials. They must feel your outrage before it's too late. Thank you.